Rylan walked through the long silver hallway with a mop in his hand, moving quietly like he did not want anyone to hear him. He was the newest worker on the Emperor's palace ship, hired only yesterday as a janitor. People passed him again and again, but no one looked at him. No one said hello. To the aliens around him, he was just a simple human, a low-rank worker who cleaned floors. But Mark did not complain. He only kept his head down and did his job, because he needed the money, and he needed a place to start again after losing. Everything on Earth. The palace ship was huge, brighter, and richer than anything Mark had seen before. Tall pillars glowed like stars, doors opened with soft music. The smell of strange flowers filled the air. But today, something was wrong. There was no music, no voices. Only fear. Guards ran across the halls with sharp faces. Doctors shouted. Commands, machines beeped like alarms. The whole place felt like it was holding its breath. Mark stood still for a moment and listened, confused. He had only been here one day, but even he knew something terrible was happening. Then he heard the whisper that froze his heart. The Emperor's triplets are dying. 3 heirs, 3 royal children. The most important young lives in the entire empire. Born from the Emperor's sacred bloodline, protected by thousands, loved by millions. And now they were fighting for life. Mark watched 2 doctors rush past. Him with shaking hands, one wiped tears from his eyes. Another muttered, "No cure. Nothing is working. It's getting worse." Their voices trembled with pure fear. Mark kept cleaning, but his steps slowed. His breathing changed. Something inside him felt heavy, like a stone pressing on his chest. He tried to ignore it. He tried to stay away from trouble. But the sound he suddenly heard, the weak cough of a child, hit him harder than a punch. It was the same cough his daughter had before she died. Mark stopped walking. The mop slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. His eyes filled with sudden pain. His hands shook. He had not heard that sound for years, and he hoped he never would again. But the cough came again, soft and broken, coming from behind a large golden door guarded by soldiers. He moved closer, without thinking. A guard stepped in front of him and pushed him back roughly. "Human, step away," the guard snapped. "This is the royal nursery. You do not belong here." Mark tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He looked through the glass window on the door. Inside, he saw 3 tiny alien children lying on beds, their small bodies shaking with sickness. Their skin had turned pale. Their eyes were closed. Tubes were connected to their chests. Doctors rushed around them, but nothing seemed to help. Mark felt his heart break. He saw his daughter's face in every one of those small children. He saw her last day. He saw himself holding her hand, helpless, unable to save her. He closed his eyes tightly, trying to push back the memories, but when he opened them, he saw something no one else noticed: tiny silver spots on the children's necks. Spots he had seen once before, when his daughter got sick from a rare microfungus. On Earth, a sickness that killed children fast but did not harm adults. A sickness no alien doctor would ever recognize. Mark whispered to himself, barely able to speak, "I know that sound. I know that sickness." A doctor turned toward him, shocked to see a janitor speaking. "What did you say, human?" Mark swallowed hard. His voice was soft but steady. "I've seen this before," he said. "On Earth, my daughter. She had the same signs." The guards moved closer, threatening him. The doctor frowned, confused. The aliens around him whispered. Angrily, "Human, go back to your work," a guard growled. "You cannot speak about royal matters," but Mark did not move. He could not. His eyes stayed on the dying children. His hands felt cold. His heartbeat was loud in his ears. He knew the truth: if the triplets had the same sickness as his daughter, then they had very little time left. He stepped closer again, even though he knew it could cost him his life. Please, Mark said softly. Let me look at them. I think I know what is killing them. Everyone stared at him like he was insane. The Emperor himself appeared on a glowing screen above the door, his voice deep and full of anger. A human. Janitor thinks he can save my children? He said, but Mark did not lower his eyes. He simply said, I don't want power. I don't want reward. I just don't want to watch another child die. The hallway fell silent. And for the first time, someone finally noticed the human janitor. The hallway stayed silent after Mark spoke, as if the whole palace ship did not know how to react. A human janitor, a nobody in their eyes, had asked to examine the Emperor's royal children. The guards looked at each other in confusion. The doctors stared with disbelief. And on the glowing screen above the nursery door, the Emperor's golden eyes narrowed with danger. Human, the Emperor said, his voice cold as winter metal. Do you understand the price for touching royalty without permission? Mark nodded. Slowly. Yes, he whispered. I understand. Then why do you ask for this? The Emperor demanded. Mark did not look away. He did not step back, because the sound of their breathing, he said softly, is the same sound my daughter made before she died. I can't ignore it. The Emperor's anger softened, just for a second, replaced by surprise, maybe even sadness. But the moment passed fast. Take him away, the Emperor ordered. 2 guards grabbed Mark's arms roughly. He didn't fight. He only kept watching. The triplets through the glass window, his heart breaking as their weak little bodies shook with fever. But then another voice spoke. Wait. It was the royal healer, an older alien with silver skin and wise purple eyes. He had served the Emperor for decades. His voice carried weight. Everyone stopped moving. He is only a janitor, one guard whispered. He is only a father. The healer corrected. And sometimes a father sees things others cannot. The Emperor's image flickered on the screen. You trust this human? He asked slowly. No, the healer replied calmly. But I trust desperation. And we are out of options. A long pause filled the air. The Emperor closed his eyes for a moment. Then he gave a single nod. Let him enter. The guards released Mark. His arms trembled, but not from fear. He felt a strange strength rising inside him, a feeling he had not felt since the days when he held his daughter close. The nursery door opened with a soft hum. Warm air rushed out. The smell of strange medicine filled his lungs. Mark stepped inside gently, like he was entering a sacred place. And in a way, he was. The triplets lay on 3 small beds, each wrapped in glowing blankets. Their breaths were shallow. Tiny lights flickered over their bodies. Their chests rose and fell with painful effort. Mark walked closer. No one stopped him now. The doctors watched every step he took, ready to blame him for anything that went wrong. But he ignored them. His attention was on the children. Just the children. He knelt beside the smallest one, a tiny girl with crystal blue markings on her cheeks. He touched her forehead gently. She felt hot, far hotter than any human child should ever feel. But the heat pattern was familiar too. Familiar. He checked her breathing. Fast, sharp, scratching. He whispered, just like Sarah. My baby girl. The alien doctors leaned forward. They didn't understand his words, but they saw the pain in his eyes. They saw the steadiness in his hands. Mark moved to the second child, then the third. Each one showed the same strange symptoms, silver spots on the neck, burning fever waves, choking breaths. And Mark finally knew. It's not a virus, he said quietly. And it's not poison. The room froze again. Then what is killing them? The healer asked. Mark looked up, fear and certainty mixing in his voice. A microfungus, he said. A very rare one from Earth. It hides in old air filters. Adults can fight it. Children can't, the aliens gasped. But this is the Emperor's ship, a doctor argued. Our systems are perfect. No system is perfect, Mark replied. Check the filters in the old west ventilation shaft. They were installed before humans started working on this ship. And this fungus grows in metal cracks. The healer turned to the staff. Go now. 4 workers ran out of the room. The Emperor's face reappeared on the screen. If what you say is true, he said slowly, can you save my children? Mark took a deep breath. His hands closed tightly together. I can try, he said, but I need things you won't understand. Tell me, the healer said. I need hot water, Mark said first. Very hot, almost boiling. The aliens nodded. I need honey, Mark said next. The aliens froze. Honey? One doctor repeated, confused. For humans? Another asked. No, Mark said softly. For them. It helps the fungus weaken. And the third thing? The healer asked. Mark swallowed hard. I need a cleaning chemical from the supply room. The one humans use for old pipes. Every alien in the room stared at him like he was insane. You want to use a janitor's chemical on royal children? The doctor cried. Mark looked straight at him, eyes steady, voice calm. I want to save their lives, he said. And this is the only way. The Emperor did not speak for several seconds. Everyone waited. Then the Emperor said 3 quiet words. Give him everything. And the room began to move with new hope. Mark stood in the center of the royal nursery, surrounded by alien doctors who watched him with fear, doubt, and a strange mix of hope they did not want to show. The Emperor's triplets lay on their small glowing beds, their breaths weak and uneven. Their tiny chests lifted only a little each time, and every moment felt like it could be their last. The healer placed the items Mark requested on a floating table: hot water steaming in a metal bowl, golden honey shining like sunlight, and a small bottle of the human cleaning chemical that smelled sharp, almost too strong for the aliens. The doctors stared at the bottle with horror. If you use that, one whispered, it might kill them instantly. Mark did not look at them. His hands were steady now, steadier than they had been since his daughter died. He touched the steaming bowl and nodded, feeling the heat. Good, he said. This will work. The royal healer stepped closer. Explain what you are doing, human, he said carefully. Mark took a slow breath. He didn't want to scare them, but he needed them to understand. This fungus survives in cold and reacts to certain minerals in alien air, he said, but it cannot survive heat. And it hates sugar. Humans used this method on Earth a long time ago. It works, but it is risky. Risky how? A doctor asked sharply. Mark looked down at the children, his eyes soft, filled with memories. When the steam enters their lungs, he said quietly, their bodies will panic. They will think they are choking. Their fever will spike for a few seconds. They may scream. And if you are wrong? The doctor asked. Mark closed his eyes. If I am wrong, then they will die faster. A wave of panic filled the room. Some doctors backed away. A few guards stepped forward as if ready to stop him. But the healer raised his hand, keeping order. We have no other choice, he said. Let him continue. Mark mixed the honey into the hot water. It melted quickly, creating a thick, sweet steam that rose softly into the air. Then he took the chemical bottle and added the smallest drop. The water hissed, then filled the room with a different kind of steam, warm, sharp, and strangely sweet. Aliens covered their noses, confused by the scent. Mark breathed it in, letting the memory come back. Yes, he said. This is it. This is the smell I remember. He turned to the healer. Bring me the youngest heir first. The healer carefully lifted the tiny girl with crystal blue markings and handed her to Mark. She felt light, fragile, like she could break in his hands. Her eyes flickered open for a second, glowing faintly, then closed again. Mark held her close, letting the steam surround her. It's okay, he whispered. You're strong. You can fight this. The child's body jerked suddenly. Doctors gasped. Guards moved. Even the Emperor's image on the screen leaned forward. Her breath quickened. She cried out a thin, painful sound. "She is dying." One doctor shouted. "No," Mark said, shaking his head. "She is fighting." The steam wrapped around the child like warm fog. Her skin glowed slightly brighter. The silver spots on her neck began to fade, just a little. Her breathing changed. It was still fast, but it had rhythm now, not panic. Mark moved her slowly through the steam, letting it fill her lungs. She whimpered again, but this time the sound was stronger. She was trying to breathe deeper. "She is stabilizing." The healer said in disbelief, "It is working." But before anyone could celebrate, an alarm beeped loudly behind them. Second triplet, the boy with gold marks, began shaking violently on his bed. His fever spiked higher than the first child's. Mark quickly handed the girl back to the healer. "Keep her warm," he said. "Do not let the steam leave her body." He rushed to the second child. His skin felt like fire. His breaths were broken. His silver spots had grown bigger. He was worse. Mark lifted him gently and turned back to the steaming bowl. The Emperor's voice boomed from above. "Human, if you fail this time." Mark did not let him finish. "I won't." He worked quickly, letting the steam wash over the boy's tiny face. The child screamed louder than his sister. His body shook uncontrollably, but Mark held him tight, whispering, "Breathe. Breathe. Come on, little one." After a long moment, the shaking slowed. The fever line on the scanner dropped by 1 degree. The silver spots dimmed slightly. The room filled with shocked whispers. Then a new sound chilled every heart. A loud beep. A red warning light. The third child, the strongest of the three, was now crashing faster than both of them. The fungus was fighting back. Mark looked at the fading child on the bed. His heart pounded. He had one more chance. Asterisk. The nursery alarms screamed through the room as the third child, the strongest heir, began to crash. His glowing bed flickered red as his tiny chest moved slower and slower. The doctors panicked. The guards stepped forward as if ready to pull Mark away. Even the Emperor's face on the floating screen tightened with fear. Mark rushed to the third child. This boy had deeper markings on his skin, shining like tiny stars. He was known as the future heart of the Empire, the one who would one day carry the Emperor's legacy. And now he was slipping away faster than the others. Mark lifted him gently, feeling how weak his small body had become. "Stay with me," Mark whispered, his voice shaking. "I know you're tired, but stay." The steam bowl had cooled slightly. Mark added another drop of the cleaning chemical. The bowl hissed again, releasing a fresh cloud of warm, sharp steam. He carried the child close and let the steam surround him. At once, the boy coughed a rough, dry sound that made the healer flinch. The child's fever rose sharply. His skin glowed a dangerous bright pink. His breathing turned into short gasps. "He is dying faster," a doctor cried. "Stop the human now." Another shouted. Several guards rushed forward, hands on their weapons, but the healer blocked their path. "No, look at the scans, look carefully." The equipment above the bed flickered. The line was unstable, but there was a small change. The fungus inside the boy's lungs was reacting. It was moving, weakening. "It is working," the healer said firmly, but slowly. Mark closed his eyes, remembering the one night he held his daughter the same way, hot steam rising around her, her small hands gripping his shirt. She had been too weak. He had been too late, but this time, he refused to fail. "Come on," Mark whispered as he rocked the child softly. "Breathe for me. You can do it." The child let out a weak cry, and then he breathed deeper. Just once. Then again. The alarm softened. The scanners steadied. "He is responding," one nurse whispered, amazed. "He is actually responding." Mark felt hope rise inside him, but it didn't last long. Outside the nursery, loud voices exploded. In the halls, angry voices. Many voices. Who let a human near the heirs? He will kill them. Execute him before he poisons the bloodline. The doors shook as people tried to force them open. The guards inside looked terrified. Even the healer's hands trembled. The Emperor's face appeared again. His eyes were sharp, full of rage and fear mixed together. "Human," he said in a low voice, "the Empire will not accept this. They think you are harming my children." "I'm saving them," Mark replied, his voice steady despite everything. "They do not believe you," the Emperor said. "They think this sickness came from you." Mark froze. He had expected anger, maybe doubt, but not that. "From me?" he whispered. No, I would never." "They believe humans bring disease," the Emperor continued. "They think your presence caused all this." Mark felt the weight of those words crash into him like a storm. Earth had once blamed aliens for sickness too. Fear made people cruel. Fear made people blind. The doors shook harder. Someone shouted, "Bring out the human." He touched the royal heirs. Another voice yelled, "He must pay for the danger he caused." Mark gently placed the third child back on the glowing bed. The boy's breathing was still weak, but steady enough to survive the next step. Then Mark turned toward the Emperor's screen. For the first time, he raised his voice. "Punish me later," he said. "Do whatever you want to me later. But right now your children need more than steam." The healer stepped closer. "What do you mean?" Mark pointed at the scans. "The fungus is breaking, but it is not dead. It will return. We need to remove it completely." "That requires surgery," a doctor said. "We do not have the time." "No," Mark replied. "Not surgery, something simpler. Something manual." The room went silent. "What are you suggesting, human?" the Emperor asked. Mark swallowed hard. "I need to extract the fungus threads from their airways, with tools, by hand." Every alien doctor recoiled in horror. "You want to touch the royal lungs?" one shouted. "That is forbidden." Another cried, but Mark's eyes stayed calm, focused. "My daughter died before I learned how to extract the threads. These children don't have to." The Emperor's expression froze. The room felt heavy. The shouting outside grew louder, the pounding on the doors stronger. The healer looked at the Emperor. "If we delay, they will not survive the hour." The Emperor closed his eyes. Everyone waited. Finally he spoke. "Human, do the unthinkable." Mark nodded slowly. He picked up the tools. The extraction would begin. The nursery lights dimmed slightly as the Emperor gave his order. The room fell silent, so silent that Mark could hear the shaking in his own hands. Outside, the angry crowd continued shouting, demanding his arrest, demanding justice for a crime he had not committed. The guards inside looked nervous, unsure if they were protecting the heirs or the human who dared to touch them. Mark ignored everything. He focused only on the 3 small children fighting for life. The royal healer placed a tray of simple tools beside him, small metal rods, soft cloth pieces, and tiny suction tubes. They were not meant for royal medical work. They were not meant for anything dangerous. But they were all they had. "Human," the healer said softly, "this procedure is delicate. If you slip even once—" "I know," Mark said quietly. "I've done it before, on Earth." The healer tilted his head. "Then why did your child not survive?" Mark froze. For a long time he said nothing. His eyes lowered to the floor. His breath grew unsteady. The room waited, sensing a shadow rise behind his silence. Finally Mark spoke, but his voice was soft, cracked, almost broken. "I didn't know how to do it then," he said. "I learned too late. The aliens did not understand." The guards exchanged confused looks. The doctors frowned. Only the Emperor's face on the floating screen seemed to soften. Mark continued, each word heavy like a stone on his chest. My daughter's name was Sarah. She was 7. She was strong, braver than I ever was. One day she caught this strange sickness. At first, doctors said it was nothing. But she got worse, fast, just like your children. He swallowed hard, his eyes turning red as memories flooded him. When she couldn't breathe, I held her. I begged every doctor. I begged every hospital. But nobody knew what was wrong. Nobody believed a simple janitor when I said something felt different. He glanced at the triplets, small, helpless, pale. I studied night after night, trying to understand. But by the time I found the cause, by the time I learned the cure, she was already gone. The healer lowered his head in respect. Even the guards grew quiet. The shouting outside seemed farther away now, drowned by the weight of Mark's story. So when I heard these children cough, Mark whispered, I felt like my heart was waking from a long, cold sleep. I couldn't lose another child. Not again. His voice trembled. Even if they're not human. Even if they're not mine. The Emperor spoke, his voice deeper and gentler than before. You carry a father's grief, human, and a father's courage. Mark didn't answer. He simply picked up the first tool. He stepped toward the smallest child, the one with the crystal blue markings. Her tiny chest rose and fell rapidly too fast. Her breaths were small, like they were fighting through thick mud inside her lungs. Mark leaned over her slowly. I'm going to help you breathe, he whispered. You must stay with me. The healer and 2 nurses stood beside him, ready to assist. They watched closely as Mark placed the small suction tube near the girl's throat, guiding it carefully, gently. A soft clicking sound came from inside. There, Mark said. The fungus threads wrap around the airway. I need to pull them out without hurting her. How will you know where to pull? A doctor asked. Mark didn't look up. Because I learned the hard way. He adjusted the tool with extreme care. He breathed slowly, steadying his hand like a surgeon. Then, with a tiny motion he pulled. A thin silver thread slid out, glowing weakly before breaking apart in the air. The doctors gasped. That was inside her? One whispered. Mark nodded. And more. I have to get all of them. He continued. The extraction, pulling thread after thread, each one smaller than a hair, but deadly enough to stop a child's breath. Sweat dripped from his forehead. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of doing something he once failed at. Then the girl coughed once, twice, and her breathing changed. It was still weak, but smoother, more open. She is breathing easier, the healer said, shocked. Human, continue. Mark moved to the second child, the boy with gold markings. His throat was tighter, his fungus threads deeper. This extraction was harder. Twice Mark had to stop to steady his shaking hands. Do not rush, the healer reminded him, but Mark shook his head. If I slow down, he won't survive. He worked faster, but still precise, pulling out thicker silver strands. The boy's chest tightened, then released. His breathing steadied. We'll live, Mark said softly. Now only the strongest child was left, the one who crashed the hardest. Mark reached for new tools, but the healer stopped him. You are exhausted, the healer said. You must rest. Mark shook his head firmly. I rest when all 3 breathe without fear. He stepped toward the third child. His hardest test was waiting. Asterisk. The third child, the strongest heir, the future heart of the empire, lay almost still on his glowing bed. His breaths were slow and uneven. His skin, once bright with golden markings, had faded to a dull gray. Machines above him blinked red warnings again and again. Every beep felt like a countdown. Mark looked at the boy with careful eyes. This one was different, stronger, born with a rare gift. But now the sickness had attacked him hardest, deeper than the others. The fungus threads were buried so far inside. his lungs that the scans could barely track them. The healer stepped beside Mark. This extraction will be the most dangerous. Mark nodded quietly. I know. If you make even a small mistake, the healer added, he may never breathe again. I know, Mark repeated softly. Outside the sealed nursery doors, the crowd had grown even louder. Their voices rose. Like a storm. Bring out the human. He is hurting the royal heirs. Stop him before he kills them. The guards inside looked tense, hands on their weapons, ready for the moment the emperor might change his mind. But the emperor's face appeared again on the glowing screen. His voice was calm but heavy. Human, the emperor said, you have saved 2 of my children. If you wish to stop here, I will not punish you. Mark looked up slowly. But if I stop, this one will die. Yes, the emperor admitted. Mark placed a hand gently on the boy's chest. Then I don't stop. The emperor watched him quietly. Why do you fight so hard? He asked. These children are not your kind. They belong to a different world. Mark didn't look away. Because a child is a child, he said softly. It doesn't matter where they come from or what shape their skin takes. And because, he paused, his voice growing weaker. Because saving him won't bring my daughter back. But maybe it will help me live again. The emperor said nothing. But something in his expression softened. Mark took the small extraction. Tula, thin silver rod, shaped almost like a needle but softer at the tip. His hands trembled, but his heart was steady. The healer and the nurses stood close, ready to assist, though none of them fully understood what Mark was about to do. He leaned close to the child and whispered, You are stronger than this. Stay with me, just a little more. He slipped the tool gently into the boy's airway. The child convulsed instantly. Doctors gasped. Nurses stepped back. An alarm screamed across the nursery. He is crashing. A doctor shouted, Remove the tool. Another yelled. But Mark did not remove it. I have to find the core thread, he said. If I pull the wrong one, the fungus will spread, and he'll be gone in seconds. You are risking his life. A doctor argued. Mark's voice cracked. I'm risking everything. Sweat ran down his temples as he searched for the cluster of threads. He could feel the vibrations through the tool, the same strange trembling he remembered from his daughter's last night. Come on, he whispered, his voice breaking. Show me where you are. Then he felt it, a tight, twisted cluster deep inside the airway. There, Mark breathed. That's the core. The healer leaned close. Are you certain? More certain than anything in my whole life. Mark replied. He wrapped the tool around the threads and gently pulled. Nothing happened. The boy didn't move. The fungus resisted. Mark tightened his grip and pulled again. Slightly harder. The child coughed blood. The nurses panicked. He's dying. Mark shook his head firmly. No, he's fighting. He pulled again, slow and steady, a long glowing. Silver strands slid out, thicker than the others, alive for a moment before breaking. Apart in the air like dust, the monitors changed instantly. The red alarms vanished. The child took a deeper breath, then another. Then a stronger one. His skin glowed again with golden markings, brighter than before. He's breathing. The healer gasped. He is breathing on his own. Mark felt tears fill his eyes. His hands finally shook, not from fear, but from relief. You did it, he whispered to the boy. You little fighter, you did it. But the moment of peace ended quickly. A loud crash echoed through the hall. The crowd outside broke through the outer barriers. Guards shouted. Weapons activated. The voices of angry aliens filled the air. Bring us the human. They said he touched the heirs. He must be punished. Inside the nursery, the Imperial guards raised their shields, blocking the doorway. The healer looked at Mark. They will not accept this. They will want blood. Mark stepped back from the children, raising his hands. I'll face whatever comes, just keep them safe. But then something impossible happened. The youngest heir, still weak but awake, reached out a tiny glowing hand toward Mark. The other two followed, their small fingers stretching in Mark's direction, as if choosing him. The guards froze. The nursery fell silent, and the Emperor, watching through the screen, whispered something no one expected. The heirs are calling to him. Mark looked at the three children reaching for him. He had saved them. But now, the Empire might destroy him. The nursery fell into a strange, heavy silence. The angry crowd outside continued shouting, but inside, time stood still. Three small alien hands, weak, glowing, trembling, reached toward the human janitor who had saved them. Mark froze. He did not understand why the children reached for him. He had only wanted to help them breathe. He had never imagined they would choose him. The guards lowered their weapons slowly, confused. The doctor stepped back, whispering among themselves. The royal healer watched with wide eyes, his voice shaking as he said, "The heirs, they recognize him. They feel trust." The Emperor's image appeared again on the glowing screen. He stared at the scene with an expression no one had ever seen on him, fear mixed with wonder. "Human," the Emperor said quietly. "Come closer." Mark hesitated, then stepped forward. The glowing hands reached further. The smallest heir let out a soft sound like a tiny cry of longing. Mark knelt beside their beds, letting each child wrap their fragile fingers around his hand. He felt their warmth, their tiny heartbeats, their newfound strength. For a moment, everything was peaceful. Then the doors shook again. The angry crowd had broken the last barrier. "Bring out the human traitor." He touched the royal bloodline. "Punish him." The guards inside the nursery raised their shields. The healer stepped between Mark and the door. "We cannot let them kill the man who saved the heirs," he said. "But the law," a guard started. "The law was written before a human saved the Emperor's family." The healer replied firmly. The Emperor's voice thundered from the screen, echoing through the entire ship. "Enough." Every voice in the hall fell silent instantly. Even the crowd outside froze. The Emperor stood now, not as a ruler filled with anger or fear, but as a father. His golden eyes glowed with gratitude. "My children live because of this human," he declared. "He risked death to save them. He fought for them when all of our doctors failed. He is no traitor." He paused. His words grew heavier. "He is the reason the Empire will have a future." Gasps spread across the nursery. The guards bowed their heads. The doctors exchanged stunned looks. The healer smiled softly, his eyes full of relief. But Mark shook his head. "Your Majesty, I didn't do it for reward," he said. "I just did what any father would do." The Emperor looked at him carefully. "Your daughter, you could not save her." Mark's chest tightened. "No, I couldn't. But today," the Emperor continued, "you saved mine. All three of them." Mark felt something warm rise in his chest, grief mixing with healing, pain mixing with purpose. The Emperor raised his hand. "Open the doors. Let the Empire see." The nursery doors slid wide. The crowd outside, thousands of aliens dressed in the bright colors of the palace, stared inside. Their eyes went first to the heirs alive, breathing, glowing again. Then they saw the human janitor kneeling beside them. A deep wave of shock passed through the crowd. Many had come to see Mark executed. Some believed he had harmed the heirs. Others didn't want a human near the royal bloodline. But all those thoughts changed when the smallest heir suddenly lifted her hand toward the crowd, and she said a soft word. "Dad." The room froze. Mark's head snapped up in shock. The healer covered his mouth. The guards turned to each other, stunned. Even the Emperor's eyes widened. The little girl reached for Mark again, her tiny fingers trembling. Her voice barely a whisper. "Dad." Then the second child echoed her, a weak sound but clear. Dad. Then the third. 3 voices thin, fragile, but full of trust, called to the human who had saved them. The crowd fell silent. Then someone whispered, "The heirs have chosen." Another voice followed, louder, "They call him father." And then, the whole hall erupted not with anger this time, but with awe, with respect, with something the Empire had never felt for a human before. The Emperor stood tall. "This man," he declared, "is not a janitor. He is not a worker. He is the protector of my children. From this day forward, he will walk beside them." Mark felt tears in his eyes. For the first time in years, his heart felt light. The pain of losing his daughter did not disappear, but now, he had 3 new little lives looking at him the same way Sarah once had. The Emperor turned to him. "Mark Rylan, will you stay by their side?" Mark squeezed the small hands holding his. "Yes," he whispered, "I will." The children breathed peacefully, their eyes glowing softly as they pressed closer to him. A human janitor had walked into the palace unnoticed. Now, he walked out as the father of the future.